like to ask questions that we all know the answers to, so I don't mean this in that spirit, but you've got more than 9,000 Americans who have lost their lives, and a whole lot more than that sick. And I'd say every American scared. And Donald Trump's briefing, at least the one Saturday night that I sat through, he was talking about, quote, suing the ass off the whistleblower. He was calling the Inspector General for the intelligence community a disgrace. And he's now, it's spilled out into public, he's in open war with Drs. Fauci and Birx about prescribing a drug that hasn't been researched and hasn't been proven as therapeutic for COVID-19. Is there anything or anyone that can tell him to pump the brakes or at least pretend to care about the loss of life and the real trauma that his country is experiencing?
Well, look, the people around him, the people in this White House who talked to him, who are part of this task force, have urged him to do that and will continue to urge him to do that. One factor, Hope Hicks being back in the White House, somebody the president trusts and who is spending time with him. That's a person that we know has urged him to tone it down, to express more empathy and concern. And, you know, this Boris Johnson news may be another one of those things that breaks through to the president and breaks beyond that sort of outward-facing toughness and resolve that he likes to show and to act as though he's not scared and he's not worried about anything. He described Boris Johnson as very strong. You know, he also, after learning about a friend of his going into the hospital in New York with very serious symptoms and seeing images from New York, that's what prompted him to come out and start to reflect on just how serious this was. It was obviously temporary, but we could see more of that from the president when he comes out to talk tonight. I think what's obvious here is this is a president who, regardless of the day or the news or the message, he needs to be front and center at these briefings. Yesterday, there was no briefing scheduled on Sunday afternoon, and then they added one because the president demanded it. And when he came out to the podium, it was obvious there wasn't really any news or anything new that the president had to say. There were more interactions where he's going after reporters and attacking them for asking obviously legitimate and important public health questions. He stood in front of Dr. Fauci and wouldn't let him respond to the question about hydrochloroquine because he said, you know, oh, you don't have to answer that. You've answered that a lot of times. That's the president saying, don't answer that because I don't want to be contradicted. And with that, you know, obviously the president doesn't like these questions about the response, about what's happened, about why there was a shortage of testing when we needed tests, about why now there's a shortage of ventilators when we need ventilators now, not in 3 months when the president is saying that we'll have tons of ventilators. He doesn't want those questions. And you can see him setting up this hydrochloroquine thing as a should we do it or should we not do it sort of question, so that ultimately, because he knows this is going to be bad, he knows an election is coming, and he knows the death toll is going to be unimaginably high, at some point he will look back and say, well, if only we had done this. He's not worried about people taking this without medical advice and you know, with very serious and sometimes fatal consequences. He is selling this optimism around this drug because he had the government, the federal government, his administration have been obviously slow to react for months now. He wants there desperately to be a panacea, and he is also selling that idea to the public.
Dr. Patel, let me play the moment that Eli Stokols just described pretty vividly of the president interjecting and stopping Dr. Fauci from answering a question about this drug treatment.
You also weigh in on this issue of hydroxychloroquine. What do you think about this, and what is the medical evidence?
That question?
Yeah. Well, maybe 15 doctor.
15 times. You don't have to ask.
He's your medical expert, correct?
He's answered that question 15 times.
You know, Dr. Patel, it's startling, it's scary, and it starts to look like something that everyone fears these briefings are. Not fact-based, not science-based, but the Donald Trump show.
Yeah, Nicole, I don't know when it's going to be. It couldn't be more obvious that this is an administration and certainly a president who has stifled, suppressed, and in front of our very eyes, muzzled science. And I'm not sure, I don't even think we scratched the surface of understanding the depths to which this has happened. But you saw it play out on stage. Wow. And unfortunately, these are real lives that are hanging in the balance. That's the sad part.
Well, Dr. Patel, let's, for our viewers, what should people do? When you hear the President of the United States say, what do you have to lose? And then hopefully as many people heard the head of the American Medical Association say, maybe your life. What are the facts as we know them right now about this drug therapy? What should people do?
All right, so here's what we know. We know that this is actually a very old drug. It's been mentioned, used in malaria, actively used right now on patients that I have that have lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. So this is a drug that's being used, but under careful watch and only in certain circumstances. It is only being investigated for potential treatment of COVID-19 and only after you have a diagnosis. So anybody, including myself, we should not be taking this. And the reason that it could be fatal is that there is a percentage of people in which this drug will actually change the electrical rhythm of their heart, and it can cause a fatal, meaning deadly, heart pattern. And that's what we know. And calling your doctor, calling me and asking for it when you're not already under treatment for COVID-19 is just a fool's errand all around. And what we should be doing is exactly what everybody is saying. Stay at home. If you must go outside, use a non-medical mask, wipe down your grocery basket, wash your hands, and use sanitizer. And that will actually keep us safe. And that's what we do know.
All right, I'm going to let that be the last word, the word from Dr. Kavita Patel. And Eli Stokols, thank you, too, for starting us off. We're grateful.